let's address the elephant in the room. I did not mean to slay this hard on my makeup, but it happened, and I'm not gonna apologize for it. Oh my god, was I not filming that whole time? Hello everyone, I hope you're enjoying this more intimate, moody setting that we have for tonight. It is a later night for me, so I just figured I would pull the ring light out, set it to a more moody setting, and get up close and personal as we talk about the pros and cons of living in Atlanta. If you're new, my name is Maddie. I'm a 20-something-year-old living in Atlanta, of course, and I work in the wedding industry. If you want to follow me on Instagram, please feel free to. If you want to subscribe to this channel and turn on post notifications, also feel free to do that. Before I moved here permanently in 2020, I lived here in 2019 for a test run. It was during 2019 that I created my first pros and cons of living in Atlanta video. I rewatched it the other day. It's not bad. However, I feel like it was a very basic explanation of the pros and cons of living in Atlanta. Now that I'm I don't know what the word is. I'm older, I'm wiser, I pay taxes. Not that I didn't then, but you know, I've lived here for some time now, and I feel like I have a more well-rounded understanding of what it's like to live in Atlanta. Without further ado, let's get into it. I just rewatched my footage back. It went from like a deep amber to a really cool, almost blue undertone. And I don't know why the app, but I don't feel like refilming. So please, as I said in my last video, I'm still figuring out my lighting and my sound and all of that. My tripod has cobwebs on it. If that's not an indication of how long it's been since I've done this, I mean, I don't know what is. I'm someone who likes to receive bad news first, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the pros, and then we'll get into the cons. Excuse me? We're gonna start with the cons and get into the pros. Hello? The two cons that I still kind of agree with that I mentioned in my last video is how everyone wants to flex and the traffic. The whole everyone wants to flex thing, I don't know if it is specific to Atlanta. I don't know if major cities just tend to draw people that are more materialistic. I don't know what it is. I really don't. I think in my last video, I said that it was only the men who were super materialistic and like just wanted to flex all the time, and that's not true. It's everyone. Not everyone. It's not specific to a gender. To be honest, that doesn't really affect my life on a day-to-day basis just because I don't choose to hang out with people like that. Yeah, I just don't run in those kinds of circles. I don't really live that kind of lifestyle, so it doesn't really affect me. The traffic though, this is something that affects me. I don't want to sit here and ramble about the traffic because it's just not productive. But I will put some statistics on the screen describing Atlanta traffic. The other thing that I mentioned in my last video that I do agree with is the bugs. I'm not gonna say I came into contact with my first roach, but I will say that it was my first time dealing with a roach without an adult present, because I was the adult. Bugs are not something I grew up dealing with. I grew up in New Mexico and Colorado, which are very arid climates. Just anywhere that you live that's going to be a more humid climate, you're just going to deal with more bugs, and that's just the fact of the matter. I don't love it, but I put up with it. The things that I don't think I mentioned in my last video were the cost of living and the weather. I'm going to put these in kind of flex pro and con categories, only because it kind of depends on your perception and your own experience and preferences. The cost of living is low in comparison to a lot of other major cities in the country. I also used to live in Boulder, Colorado, which Colorado is one of the most expensive states to live in, and Boulder is one of the most expensive cities, if not the most expensive city in Colorado. My scale for cost of living is skewed. However, living in the city in particular is more expensive than living in the suburbs or in rural areas here in Georgia, and it's definitely not cheap. I will say that I contribute some of this to inflation. The weather. The part about the weather that I don't like here in Atlanta is the lack of sunny days. And again, I only say that because I come from Colorado where it's sunny 300 days out of the year. If you're used to overcast days, it probably won't bother you that much. But for me, I really enjoy my sunshine. It gives me a lot of serotonin, and not seeing the sunshine all the time has been a little bit hard. But on the flip side, the winter is very mild here. especially in comparison to Colorado. It snowed the other day, and people freaked out. It only snowed like an inch. Everyone thought it was going to be like this crazy snowstorm, and maybe it was by Georgia standards, but it was like an inch of snow. It was very weird. I will also say that in Atlanta there is a lack of natural disasters. We're not getting hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, things of that nature. That doesn't really happen here. And I love the humidity. I know that a lot of people would place this as a con, but I have very dry skin and very dry hair, so it's really helped bring my skin back to life and bring out the natural curls in my hair. One more con that kind of piggybacks off of the weather and off of the traffic is that people do not know how to drive here. Again, I don't want to ramble because it's not productive, but again, I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know if it's. I don't know. People will cross 5 lanes of traffic on the highway. People won't let you over. People drive at least 15 miles above the speed limit. They tailgate you. Getting into the pros. The pros. People always ask me, what brought you from such a wonderful, beautiful state like Colorado to a state like Georgia? And that's how they say it. Obviously, there are a lot of pull factors to Atlanta. That's why the population is continuing to increase, and that's why the prices are increasing too. So I know I'm part of the problem. The 2 main pull factors of why I initially was so drawn to Atlanta were the diversity and the culture and the wedding industry, and both of those factors are still very much positives for me to this day. When I talk about diversity versus integration, they are very much 2 different things, and I don't feel like going in depth to explain both of them, so I'm sure there's lots of resources out there for you who don't fully understand the difference. On a very basic level, I just feel like states in the South tend to be more diverse but less integrated, and states in the North/West tend to be less diverse but more integrated. There are exceptions. Overall, I feel like the city is definitely more integrated than the suburbs and the rural areas are, and you know, it's just kind of no secret as to why that is. The specific area that I live in is very integrated, and I love that. Specifically, Atlanta is huge on Black culture and Black history, which I love. I just feel like most cities just don't really celebrate marginalized identities, histories, and cultures. So it's really cool and unique and amazing to live in a city that does. Another thing is the wedding industry. I would say that it's slightly oversaturated, but overall there are so many weddings and events that happen here. There's a lot of work to go around. When I first moved here in the middle of 2020, I had a hard time finding work in the wedding industry, but that had everything to do with the panorama and nothing to do with the industry here. Slightly going along with the wedding industry thing, there is so much opportunity here, and it's kind of a vague, hard concept to explain. And potentially, again, maybe this is the case in a lot of major cities, but Atlanta has just something about it that makes it very opportunistic, entrepreneurial. A great example is Piedmont Park, which is the biggest park in Atlanta. It's in the Midtown area. I don't know if that's the biggest park in Atlanta, but I would assume that it is. I go there all the time, especially in the summertime with my friends. And every time I go, without fail, I see lots of people promoting their business, promoting their music, going around from blanket to blanket, essentially, selling and promoting their business, which is super cool. The biggest pro for me has to be there is never a lack of things to do. I do think that this is why the wedding industry, or at least part of the reason why the wedding industry is so big here, is because you can get married in the mountains, you can get married in the city, you can get married on a rooftop and in a warehouse, and there are just so many different types of venues because the landscape of Georgia in general is so diverse. Obviously, hiking in the mountains here means something very different than hiking in the mountains in Colorado. I try not to argue with people when they call the hills here mountains, but I just can't help myself sometimes. But it is really cool that you can go on a hike and then go out for brunch and then spend your day in the gardens and then go to a club at night. That's really cool. that is my summary of the pros and cons of living in Atlanta. I would love if you live in Atlanta or have lived in Atlanta in the past, if you could drop your pros and cons in the comments. And I would also love if you are thinking about moving to Atlanta or are planning on moving to Atlanta in the future, if you have any more questions, concerns, comments, if you would post those down below and I will try to get to those, or people in the comments can answer you as well. There are definitely more pros and cons, but those are my main ones, and those kind of summarize the big reasons why I like and dislike living here. Again, if you would love, please subscribe and hit that post notification bell. I have some really cool content coming up in February, and I am trying my hardest to post every week. I'm trying. I appreciate you so much for watching. I hope you have a great week and a great weekend, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.